Back on the Joe Show here on a Tuesday, talking about the Transportation Benefit District, Prop 1 on your ballot. And on the phone with me is Brett Bonner. He's with the Whatcom Information Center, a think tank, or PAC rather, that they organized to, gather information and inform the public on their take on different issues. Of course, they were active in during the transportation tax debate last spring and have become involved in Prop 1 debate as well. And Brett, you're talking about some other issues that face the city, and of course that is the case. There are other issues, and some even members of city council have voiced concern. Why are we focusing on transportation when we do have these other problems facing the city? But that will never change. And the other thing that will never change is the fact that, and you talk about bike lanes and crosswalks, but those are important parts of our city's transportation infrastructure, but just basic street maintenance and repair. And the mayor says if we let those go too long, the repair and maintenance will just get more and more costly, and that's a detriment to the city.
Certainly, we agree. What hasn't been talked about is if the mayor says that street maintenance is such a priority, why did he, in his budget, and the city council approve taking money away from the street fund last year and this year and next year? In the past, there was a split of sales tax revenue. Sales tax revenue that came into the city, 50% went to streets and 50% went to the general fund. Last year, the council changed that ratio to 42% for streets and 58% for the general fund. So what they're doing is they're robbing from the street fund, creating a problem so then they could ask us for $40 million more to fix it.
Well, but that's the kind of the situation we're in, and that's what the mayor is saying, that we're going to have to pull money from street maintenance and improvements in transportation if we don't have the money for this transportation benefit district, because the fact of the matter is that the other departments need it.
It's prioritization, and if streets are in such dire need, well, then put 50% of the money back in the street fund.
But then that money comes out of other departments that need it, and it's it's a shell
That's
game.
true.
You're, like you say, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, and who's more important?
Well, you have to prioritize. That's all we're saying is that, our group thinks that with a violent crime rate that's up 41%, that law enforcement would be more important. The city's technology backbone would be more important. Parks maintenance probably more important. Pollution runoff into the lake more important. The thing that we have to remember here, and there's this kind of what Jimmy Carter, remember he talked about the American malaise. Mm-hmm. People are thinking that, this recession, the attitude is this is permanent, that things aren't going to get better. And they are going to get better. If you look at history, we've had so many recessions, so many depressions over our country's history that things do get better. This is not the norm. This is not the way we're going to be for the next 20 years. So sales tax revenue, we're already starting to see that turn around. All we're saying is let's delay this. It seems foolish, and this is where the Bellingham Herald, they came out against Proposition 1, in part by saying, it's not wise to have money specifically designated for this locked up for the next 10 years. Government complains a lot, when citizens say, well, why don't you cut this and move that money over there? And they say, we can't do that. It has to go to mental health. It has to go to streets. It's designated for this and designated for that. Well, why are we doing that in this case? Why don't we keep all the money in one pool and then prioritize from there? And if streets are in the top priority, something else will have to be cut.
Well, and I think there's also the issue of Sunday bus service, which has been cut. And in spite of what you said during the campaign, that the board moved forward with cuts to service, including an elimination of Sunday service, because they saw it as a necessity, reserves or not. And this is not a board made up of wild-haired liberals that are completely, want to take it out on the voters who voted down, that want to just be spiteful. I think they're all thoughtful. There are many conservatives on the board.
They're not. Yeah, I agree. The WTA board decided not to support Proposition 1. They had a vote. Pete Kremen actually said that Proposition 1 was somewhat dangerous. If I can get the exact quote up here, I can't find it at the moment. But
now you're going to prompt another letter to the editor.
Well, you know what? I have to say though that there was some criticism that we were pointing out that people had spoken out against it, and Pete Kremen said, I think it's really short-sighted. It will be nearly impossible to get a countywide WTA measure approved in the future if you go down this road. The head of the WTA union, who now says he's in favor of it, I don't get this. He said in the city council, quote, if this is passed, the capacity to fund future transit will be gone. They're worried about the city of Bellingham setting up a two-tiered system. They're worried that if this passes and they want to come back to voters and ask for another tax increase, that they won't be able to. One other thing about Sunday service, real quick, is that Western Washington University has started its own bus service for students. Now, students make up about 40% of the WTA ridership. So for the next year at least, Western is busing their own students around, and they're using all the bus stops in downtown Bellingham that the WTA went to.
Yeah, but that does nothing for the private citizen who relied on it to get to wherever they need to go on a Sunday, including paratransit and people that have no other way to get out and about than via WTA. And once again, I think the cuts were made by a conscientious board that felt that this is something, our hands are tied. We're forced to do this because we just don't have the revenue. And they went ahead with elimination of paper transfers recently to raise another $100,000.
The transfer issue is a completely different can of worms because the transfer issue, what was the figure? 90% of the writers never used transfers to begin with. It was not economical. Even if the economy was good, it doesn't make sense. The other part of
it's common practice in a transit system. I mean, just about every transit system has used transfers.
Lots of them don't anymore. Because people are buying monthly bus passes, they're buying the debit cards that you can go and get at stores and such. But the WTA board followed the recommendation of the WTA staff to cut Sunday service because Sunday service only impacts 3% of overall ridership.
Well, yeah, but those people it's critical for them. And I mean, if you talk about how much of the population of Bellingham or Whatcom County is affected by WTA and cuts in its service, it's a relatively small percentage, but still it's a critical service. And transportation is important to the economy.
Oh, I completely agree, but I want to go back to the unions here. I know so many businesses that during the recession, the employees took voluntary pay cuts so that they could keep staffing at existing levels, keep services at existing levels. I know some businesses that went down 5% so that people wouldn't have to be fired. The WTA union is a classic case here. Why not voluntarily, instead of fighting it, say, okay, this next year, 1 year only, so we can see how things are going to go in the future. Let's take a 5% pay cut. Let's keep Sunday service going, and that way there'll be shared sacrifice. The service will still be there, and none of the employees would have to be fired. But they don't even consider doing that. It's the same as the city of Bellingham medical benefits.
Well, but that's the union's job is to be an advocate for it and not to take two steps forward and another step back. But
so the needs of the union are more important than the needs of the citizens, and they would rather fire their own employees than have shared sacrifice. It doesn't make sense.
I don't think, because bus drivers, I mean, they make a decent wage, but they're not getting filthy rich, and I don't think that's fair to put it on the people that are actually manning the buses and getting people here and there, and ultimately, to put it on their shoulders. But
it's part of the answer. Real
quickly now, it isn't a big tax increase, 0.2%. We're talking what. 2 cents on. Are we? My math starts falling apart now. But 2 cents on a $10 purchase, right? 20 cents on a $100 purchase.
Well, the other side always says, well, it's only this much and this much. Our sales tax now is fast approaching 9% in Whatcom County, in Bellingham. When will it stop? Especially when you look at the other critical needs that are out there. Why would we lock ourselves into this 10-year spending plan, $40 million? That's $40 million that we cannot spend on other things that we think are more important. And I really do hope that people look at the facts on this. Okay. The capital needs report, look at it with an open mind. The Bellingham Police Guild came out against this. Stan Snapp, Barry Buchanan, Gene Knutson voted against this on the city council. We have some local Democratic Party leaders that have come out against this, and they're all looking at the future of the WTA. They think this will hurt the future of the WTA.
Well, that was brought up during the discussion, and I think that's a fair criticism of your mailer, is that these were all comments made during the process of just discussing this and debating it, and whether we move forward with a ballot measure and all of that.
But how could the head? There are two people now who say that they are for it, who earlier were against it. And I have to wonder how the head of the WTA union in mid-June, so this is 4 months ago, that he could basically say that the capacity to fund future transit will be gone. Please don't do this. Please consider the ramifications. How does he go from that in June to now being in favor of it? If it's nothing but politics. Stan Snapp.
I don't know, but the position in June doesn't make much sense to me for someone who's an advocate for the workers at WTA. That position seems off kilter to me.
No, it's the truth, and you can go to the city website and look at the video. You can look at the Bellingham Herald. They're looking. That's the reason Pete Kremen spoke out against it. It's the reason Stan Snapp originally was against it. It's because they think that this will set up a two-tiered system, Bellingham versus the county, and that if they want to come back as the WTA to ask for a tax increase in the future, if they need to, that Bellingham residents won't support that because, heck, we're already paying for it.
All right. Well, Brett Bonner, I appreciate your time today. We'll see how folks vote on this. Of course, 65% of Bellingham voters voted in favor of the WTA tax. So I think that was part of the motivation for the mayor to bring it back before the voters.
We're swimming upstream, Joe. Thank you. You know what? I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate the folks up at Cascade Radio and your station and KGMI for covering these issues, and it's very important. So thank you very much.
All right. Once again, Brett Bonner, thanks for being on the Joe Show.
Sure.
All right. Take care.